Good morning. All right, great. Thank you, Norm. So, reminder, you're on candid camera as we do this. We're live streaming instead of pre-recording the Bible classes. So we still have a few people that'll go back and watch it and things. So every so often I actually say something smart and wise. So, all right. So for Bible class today and for the spring, what I decided we're going to look at is Jesus said what? Looking at the hard words of Jesus. You can find the book if you want to read ahead or miss a week or something. It's a CPH book. One of my seminary classmates down in Texas wrote it. So, but we're going to go through some different sayings of Jesus that sound complicated, hard, difficult to hear, and then talk through, what it really means. Remembering as we're looking at it in context, what it means, that sometimes they sound really hard, but then when we look at it in context, we realize it makes a little more sense, remembering that Jesus is a teacher, and so he's going to vary his teaching methods some, and occasionally use things like hyperbole and exaggeration in order to get his point across, as he teaches in parables. And things like that. So just kind of those things to keep in mind as we go through and look at and listen to what Jesus is telling us, and why we might kind of stumble or get caught a little as we're reading something. Go, wait, Jesus said that? So Jesus said what? And so in the first week today we're talking about Luke 14:26. Where did Jesus tell us to hate our family? Could someone read this for us then?
And even to his own life, he cannot be my disciple.
All right. So, Jesus tells us to hate our family, right? Well, how do we understand that? How can we unpack that a little? And I'll open it up to comments first before we.
Well, it's more of you want to be my disciple, it's a really tall order.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. If we'll look at it in context, I don't think I actually put the context in there, but yeah, Jesus it's a part of a larger block of teaching on what it means to be a disciple. You have this, and then right afterwards he's talking about taking up your cross. Also, again, a reminder that being a disciple is not an easy thing to do. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be hardships. Okay, good. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Mary.
Is it making Jesus your priority? Make your father, your mother. If you have all these priorities, then you have no priorities.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so is it necessarily a lower your love for your family, or raise your love for God? And yeah, and I think those are kind of the two things that we'll be talking as we go through. And so first off, then, when in doubt, sometimes these sayings are hard because of how they're translated. Now it's sometimes hard in translation too, or in the original, but part of that. Remember, as we're hearing the New Testament, of course, we have translations. We have lots of translations, which is great and wonderful. But remembering that the New Testament was written primarily in Greek, and that's even a translation because Jesus is probably teaching in Aramaic. So as we go through, sometimes if we look at the nuances of the words that either Jesus would have said in Aramaic or that we have recorded in Greek, the nuances don't always make it into English, and so that's sometimes part of why these sayings sound harder or more challenging to us than they do. All right, so the word, so if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father or mother, hate, mizio in Greek, and the two definitions that it could have, according to our Greek lexicons, are first, to have a strong aversion to, hate, detest, or to be disinclined to, disfavor, disregard, in contrast to preferential treatment. And we've got big fancy Greek lexicons. I could have brought mine out from my office, but didn't. And in the lexicon, it reminds us that in this passage in Luke, we think that it's hate. The misio should be more of the second definition than the first. So that's kind of that first nuance that we miss.
So what translation of the Bible is that verse that you quoted?
This is from the English Standard Version, but that idea of Jesus translating this, or it being translated in English as hate, is fairly common.
What King James Version have?
That's a good question. Let me see if I can get that up on my phone quick.
Every one of the translations
I like
use
the
the word
Message.
hate.
Right. Yeah. Let's see, we're at Luke 14. And King James, verse 26. Yep, King James has hate. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. So, but yeah, that's one of those strategies. As you're reading the Bible, this applies to everything, not just these hard sayings that we're going to cover in our classes. If something sounds weird or you're having trouble, one of the first things you can do, look at a different translation. I know some of you may even have some of those interlinear Bibles or those Bibles that'll have kind of different translations on the same page. Now of course, again, it's real easy to do on the internet or through an app or something, because I use the YouVersion Bible app. The Gideons have a Bible app. There are all sorts of other ones that you can, and some of those you can even then set up your own columns and pick your own translations, and so compare. And so if something's hard, look at it and go, well, let's see, this is the translation I'm using. Let's look at this other translation and see and compare where that is and if another translation helps me understand it better. Or you can go back and learn some Greek too if you want to. But yeah, Bob.
And even paraphrases might be helpful in that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I heard someone mention the Message. That's one of those challenges as we're working with the Bible. Again, Old Testament's mostly Hebrew, some Aramaic. New Testament mostly Greek, but translating some spoken Aramaic. And so getting those to English, you get the span of ideas is essentially word for word, which makes a very accurate translation, but might sound really bad in English. And then you have the more paraphrase, where you make it sound really good in English, but you might not get exact word for word. There's a whole spectrum of things. ESV, NIV are kind of in the middle. ESV is a little more on the word-to-word side, so sometimes it'll sound a little funky, or a little doesn't quite sound in English the way we talk. And of course, yeah, if you were raised in King James, then that's how English sounded 400 years ago, but it's not necessarily how contemporary American English sounds, and so there's going to be some nuances there too. So when in doubt, look at the translation. Either use a different English one. If you've got a study Bible, sometimes the footnote will go, "Hey, it's this word," or again, look online and compare translations and see how you do that. So again, hate in Misio is Greek. Has two definitions. One's hate. One's more kind of a disinclined to, disfavor, lower more than hate. And we're looking at probably when Jesus is using hate here, it's that second definition. So not hate, but maybe a way to translate it would be to not hate your family, but love your family less. What? Like them, right? Well, I don't know. I tell my kids sometimes, we always love you. I don't always like what you've been doing. So, but yeah. And then again, one of the other things, then we look and see where else this topic is covered in the Bible. Again, we're dealing with sayings of Jesus, so we've got different sayings of Jesus recorded throughout the Gospels. So look and see if he said something similar, and see how we hold those together. And so in Matthew 10:37, could someone read this one for us then?
Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me.
All right. So again, it's not a hate here, it's definitely a love less. Or, love Jesus more, put him first priority and less of a, hate your family thing. All right, and then also look at where some of these other things are. Now, we made it through the Ten Commandments with my confirmation class, so we're getting into the Creed, but we started off this year with the First Commandment, which this probably looks familiar to most of you. Why don't we read it together in unison? First Commandment, you shall have no other gods. What does this mean? We should fear, love, and trust in God above all things. So again, part of what we're dealing with here is Jesus is talking about family. Family was very important in his culture. Family is still pretty important in our culture, less so in some ways. But and so the problem is when something else becomes more important than God. So there's a few quotes here from the Large Catechism. Remember, we went through stuff last year, I think. Small Catechism, Luther wrote for heads of household to teach their households, teach their kids. And then he wrote the Large Catechism for pastors, so they knew a little more than the people they were teaching. And so he expands on some ideas in the Large Catechism, more so than they were in the Small Catechism. And so in talking about the First Commandment, then he says, Luther wrote that a God means that from which we are to expect all good and in which we are to take refuge in all distress. So it's a God is something you fear, love, and trust in, that you look to in distress, you look to in hope. And for many of us, sometimes our families can be that. Our families are where we look to in distress. If we're in trouble, who do we go to first? We go to our family. When we're struggling, when we doing that kind of thing, who do we go to? We go to our family. Our family are the people we live with. We're connected to the most, talk to the most often, and so they can be in that. They're important, but they can get to that point of overimportance there too. So family can become an idol, a god, and we can only serve one master. Now, of course, Jesus, when he says you can only serve one master, he's talking about God or money, but talking applies to any other idol, any other thing we're working with as well. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns?
Can our church become an idol?
Sure. Yeah. Anything we put our fear, hope, and trust in can become an idol.
Car. I had a pretty nice car once.
Yeah.
Iowa State.
Our home,
Yeah.
Food.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, admittedly, my happiness may be affected by how the Bears-Packers game goes this afternoon, but not my own. I've got other things that affect my happiness more so than that.
Packers are gonna win, right?
Oh yes. The coaches are playing for their jobs, so yes, they're gonna try to win.
How do you make a distinction between nationalism and then our faith when, all the goofiness that's going on in today's world, and you say, well, my life first is for Jesus Christ, it's for God.
Yeah.
It's I always have a problem explaining it simply. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No. That's another idea that that our citizenship, our national identity, can become an idol can become something more than God, and that's part of what some sociologists are seeing as being why politics is getting more divisive and vindictive, is because as we're getting less religious, we're putting all this stuff that we used to put into religion into politics. That we're hoping that our, putting our fear, love, and trust in politics, that our side needs to win in order for me to be okay, and if my side doesn't win, then I'm not going to be okay. And so we just keep ramping up that rhetoric.
A lot of times it's not what you're doing, you're just telling people what you believe in.
Well, and ideally that's the case. The problem is, we get all these political ads. If you vote for me and I will fix everything. If you vote for my opponent, they're not fixing things; they're making things worse. And it can get to that point. Ideally we're just having nice, simple policy discussions and civilly disagreeing with people. But when you get to that point where, well, my side didn't win, well, we just have to wait till the next election and work to actively persuade people that no, this course of action is better than.
And as Christians, that goes against what we just been talking about. As far as the family versus whatever idol you put before God.
Right.
You would think we as Christians and children of Christ, that we would realize that.
You'd think so. That was, but yeah, don't always. And I can't remember whether this is one of those sayings of Jesus or not. But we, talk about render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and God what is God's. And for Paul and for some of the early Christians, that was the challenge, that once you start saying Jesus is Lord, earliest creed, earliest confession, Jesus is Lord. The flip side of that was, if you were saying Jesus is Lord, that meant you were saying Caesar is not. Now you may be able to say that no, it's not that we don't hate Caesar, we just love him less than God. But the Romans aren't necessarily going to hear that nuance, or honor that distinction and go accordingly. And so we can still find that here.
Leave out the emotion.
Right. Leave out the emotion, ideally. But no. All right. And then another thing too, when we look at, so Jesus is talking about family, and hate your family. Well, what does he look like? Well, we heard this lesson, or at least part of this lesson last week. But when in doubt, let's look and see how Jesus treated his family. And so this is Luke 2, and this is the, we heard the bit before this last week. But this is that time. This is the one time we get not almost teenage Jesus in the Bible, but we learn about his family, of course, at the Christmas story, and then in this account we get the main account of Jesus as a child, and how he honors his family. And could someone read this for us?
Now,
It was that pause. Go ahead, Gary.
Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when Jesus was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. And when the feast was ended, as they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents did not know it. But supposing him to be in the group, they went a day's journey. But then they began to search for him among their relatives and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem searching for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. You want to take over?
And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been searching for you in great distress." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" and they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all these things in her heart.
All right. So what do we learn from that passage, that story? Kind of summary. Jesus honored his parents, but he honored God above his parents. So he honors his family. That's, of course, one of those things we learn, that Jesus, and his family, they go to the temple and go through the purification rites. They go on the Passover. They went every year at the Feast of Passover, and they went up according to their custom. They're active in their faith life, and they're bringing Jesus along. But then, Jesus gets left behind. So first Home Alone, I guess. But then and then his parents come and find him, and we get the fun thing of, I need to be in my Father's house. I need to honor God, God the Father, first. But after that, he goes back to Nazareth. He's submissive to his parents. He listens to what they say. And so he doesn't hate his family, he honors his family, but he honors God first. And God honors God above his parents. All right, that kind of makes sense. All right, any thoughts, other reactions there?
He should have told them.
He should have told them, right, yes. This is one of those things, it definitely takes a different view once you become a parent versus when you're beforehand.
And would this be a part of Mary and Joseph understanding just who they had been
Right. They don't understand, but Mary's treasuring this up in her heart. So, again, they know they've got this special kid, but it's still frustrating sometimes.
And this thing going on now called The Chosen, they do a pretty good job of that particular scene.
Did they?
Yeah.
Some would think that he was talking back to his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you know I'm supposed to be in my father's house?
Yep.
I was curious if they looked for him for 3 days before they found him in the temple.
Right. Check the hotel, check the park,
Soccer field.
yeah.
And we think of 12-year-old as being a kid yet.
Yeah.
And yet at that time of the world, Mary herself was only maybe 2 years older than Jesus
Right.
was a child.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, we're probably on the verge of adulthood.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you think that's why why did you treat us that way? Because the first thing until I got to that verse was like, okay,
Yeah.
what was Mary, what were their emotions?
Yeah. Oh, I think they're definitely worried about him. They worry about your kid in general. Then, oh shoot, we lost the Son of God.
Why did you treat us?
Yeah, and so again, the recognition, that Jesus, you should have honored your parents by letting us know where you were and things, and yeah.
Would his parents have knowingly left him behind?
I don't think so. I mean, the impression you get is that they suppose he's with the group, that there's a group of them, either a bunch of people from Nazareth or a family group or something, and so there's a big enough people, and you're used to, all the flock of kids are off playing over there, all the kids are together, we don't need to worry about it, that kind of thing. And so it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle that way. But all right. Again, we talked about the first commandment from the Large Catechism, but Luther also then has some things to say in the fourth commandment, which is, of course, honoring your father and mother. In the Large Catechism, and he has a couple. So he says, let's see. Honor requires not only that parents be addressed kindly and with reverence, but also that both in the heart and with the body we demonstrate that we value them very highly and that next to God we regard them as the very highest. But again, note that next to God. This is parents must be held in distinction and esteem above all things as the most precious treasure on earth. And of course, also remember, as Luther's writing this, he kind of had a contentious relationship with his parents at times. Because he dropped out of law school. His parents had scrimped and saved so he could go to law school, be a lawyer, help them run what was it, a tin mine, if I remember right, something like that. Get them up to the next class level, and then, well, Mom, Dad, sorry, I got caught in a lightning storm right out to St. Anne. Now I'm becoming a monk. And there's in the 2003 Luther movie, there's a scene where when Luther's I can't remember whether it's his ordination or at least the first time he's celebrating communion. Not only is he so scared of what he's doing that he's shaking when he spills some wine, but also that his father and brothers ride up and well, what are you doing, wasting your time doing this? Come on, So, but he still says, oh yeah, honor your parents. Yeah.
Yeah, but that honoring parents, that sense of family dynamics, but within it, it didn't have his sense of purpose.
Right.
Because he had a sense of purpose, but so how's that fit?
Well, again, yeah, when he makes that career change, it's because he's putting God first and putting God over parents.
And they weren't in that same.
Yeah, they weren't in that mindset. I think if I remember, I think there's some reconciliation that happens later on, but
that could
but yeah.
happen in a normal family as well.
Oh, definitely.
Think about that.
Yep.
What's a normal thing?
Yeah.
A normal family is, the totem pole is what I'm talking
I
about.
thought everything was normal till we started hearing the word dysfunction.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling Ron, when we were dating, I'm glad I didn't grow up in a dysfunctional family. And he goes, your parents are so strict. That's as dysfunctional as your kid.
But that's family
Right.
dynamics.
Yeah.
That's family dynamics. It wasn't
Yeah.
so much they were strict, they were just, that's their way. And it's the same here. How come you didn't let us know where you were at?
Yeah.
Well, he had a purpose and they didn't realize that purpose.
Yep.
So,
And I think they probably just
yeah.
plain panicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine your kid being gone for 3 days and being able to sleep at night.
Right.
Be sleep deprived.
Well, and lost in the big city of Jerusalem. I mean, everyone had been there for the Passover, so maybe not only are you worried about, well, where is he in general, but did he get caught up with some other family group going elsewhere, and now he's now he's in Jericho or somewhere else. Right? Yeah. No Amber Alert. He wasn't wearing one of those GPS watches or anything. But yeah.
We can laugh at it, but I.
Right. Oh yeah. All right. So again, for the parents, God has appointed and commanded obedience next to His own majesty. And honoring our parents is the highest work we can do after the grand divine worship included in the previous commandment. So again, this is talking about the fourth commandment, which, and we'll talk about the commandments kind of as two tables. The first three deal with our relationship with God, and then the 4 to 10 deal with our relationship with other people. And parents are where that shift happens. And we even then, see in Luther's understanding that all authority gets derived from parents. That the authority of the teachers come because the parents have delegated their authority to the teachers in order to educate the kids and that kind of thing. So, all right. So a few discussion questions as we kind of get towards the end. In our society, do we struggle with loving our parents too much or too little? And why do you think that?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. You probably think of examples both ways. Yeah.
Because we, we love them. We care for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we overly love them to the point where we don't explain it not in a smothering,
Yeah.
So,
What about other cultures that look at America like, why are your elderly people in nursing homes?
Oh, yeah, right.
Don't you
Yeah,
love them?
right. Is that just dumping the parents off in nursing? Is it are you honoring them by doing that, or are you shoving them off so you can forget about them and
I read
get
the
on with your
story
life?
that a gal from Asia was here in Iowa, and they said, well, we're going to show you these facilities in our town. And one was a place kind of like Green Hills.
Yeah.
And the lady from Asia said, I didn't know Iowa had so much poverty. Because they thought, you can't afford to take care of your parents, so
Right.
you ship them off.
that's a tough question right there, though, because there's a lot of dynamics in it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because if you appear too little, it doesn't mean it's too little.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking earlier about the dynamics of a family. I love my parents so much, but physically I cannot do the things that in the dynamic of it, if your tradition is, well, the kids take care of the parents, but physically, mentally, you can't do it. So you look for other options.
Yep.
Somebody else will come in and say, well, you're not a good son, that kind of stuff. They just don't know.
And this doesn't talk about the parent that maybe has abandoned.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yep.
So you got to get the evidence. You got to get more.
Yeah, like most human relationships, there's sins involved and makes things a lot messier than it could be. So, Jan, you had a thought?
Well, I don't know how many of you know who Dennis Prager is, but he's a religious Jew, conservative. And he was talking about the commandment, and it says to honor your father and mother. It doesn't say you have to love them, but you have to honor them. And he talked about his own father who had, his mother was widowed, and she was a harpy. I mean, she was terrible to him. But he called her every single night because he felt that he had to honor her by keeping in touch that way. And so I just thought that was a little different spin on things.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. How can then, on the flip side, how can children become an idol?
I think grandchildren can be.
Or grandchildren, right?
But not great-grandchildren. Great-grandchildren are perfect.
Right.
Not having either one, I tell you, I probably would be in that idol thing.
Yeah.
As a former teacher, I love kids. I don't know how you can, how can you separate when you love someone dearly, but you understand the difference between faith and, you know what I mean? The faith and fear of making someone an idol. I don't know. That's the parallel for me. It's like, I love them so much, I don't love them more than God. But I just love them. So I don't know.
But that's how they can become an idol, if you love them more than you love
Yeah,
God.
that's the point.
Like Brock Purdy's parents. I mean, here's Brock just becoming an idol to so many young kids. Not idol, but let's say role model.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, and that's one of the ways I think that children can become idols is that,
Fame.
that either fame or that, all your hopes and dreams go into your kids and what they're going to do and succeed, and so you push them too far either in youth sports or in grades or whatever ability they have, with the idea that that's going to provide, yes, your children will help provide for you in your old age, but, putting all your hope and trust in that, well, I'm going to do all this for my son so that he can, get a scholarship to play D1 football, and then make it to the NFL and then take care of me for the rest of my life, because, he's got $1 million contract. But the percentages of how many people play youth sports versus how many actually make it into professional sports, and even make enough money playing professional sports to be able to cover things is minuscule. But that's part of it. Talking with other parents. I mean, I spend 2 nights a week driving my kids to different practices and things, and they're like, "Yep, I'm an Uber driver. That's my job. I go to work, and then I'm an Uber driver for my kids all evening as they go to this practice and that practice and that other thing, And so you're almost an idol in terms of, well, your whole schedule revolves on around your kids' schedule, not around you. Yeah. Lois?
Do you think that how can children become an idol? That's happened, and that's why we have all this activity stuff on Sundays? Because I can remember when I grew up, and I grew up in a small farming community, people went to church on Sunday morning.
Right.
You might go to the drugstore,
Yep.
and after that, you went home for Sunday dinner, and you were with your family, your immediate family, or maybe your grandparents.
Yep.
But you weren't running to any practices.
Right. No, I want to say it was in one of those, why the church is shrinking kind of things. And so there's a sociologist made an argument that it's youth sports is a decent chunk of it, because that's once kids have these other options, other things that they're doing that take them away from the church. That again kind of computer idol, because you're not going to make the NFL if you're you're not going to get a D1 scholarship if you're just playing Parks and Rec. You got to be on the travel team that's playing practices every night and then goes to tournaments on the weekends against all these other good teams and XYZ. So yeah, definitely a lot less protection of the Sabbath than others. Yeah.
Coach,
Yeah.
that's perception versus reality.
Okay, and then
And what I'm trying to say is that the times and eras change, and you may have a parent that is taking their kids to Sunday events and all this and that, but Thursday they got them in confirmation.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely. I mean, you can have that way, or
yeah, it's like.
Pastor Twito over at Ascension was a soccer coach, and I remember he coached a traveling team that one of our members was on, and they always made sure even if wherever they were at a tournament, they found a church Sunday morning first before the tournament began. I mean, not everyone's going to put in that effort to do that, but it certainly can be done.
Just think of the law,
Yeah.
The law
Yeah.
in the church, and then what did Jesus say
Yeah.
about the law?
Yeah, well, do you end up just, complaining about the culture? Do you find ways to support people? And, well, then how can you grow in your faith while you're...
Oh, you mean no
There's no
family?
Yeah.
family day anymore
Yeah.
to worship and to be with
Yeah.
your family.
But that could be perception as well, because we don't know that. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad the church has started an evening service.
And so, yeah, how do we... Okay, well, everyone's traveling, but they're back on...
And it's not just
In
for
the evening, or
sports.
right?
If you're a nurse,
Yeah.
chances are you're working every other
Right.
weekend.
Right.
So you can.
All right. Don't have time to do the whole thing, but if you remember, one of the way another example of how a child could become an idol, and I mean it's one of the challenging story in and of itself. Again, Jesus isn't the only one who says things in the Bible that we have a hard time following, listening to. But one of the hardest stories to deal with is that almost sacrifice of Isaac, where Abraham is, God tells Abraham, okay, take Isaac, your only son, the one who's fulfilling the promises I've made to you, and go offer him. And then Abraham has to, put God above family and trust that God could keep his promise even if this happens. And I think Hebrews talks about how Abraham knew that even if Isaac died, God could still bring him back and things. So there's some faith going on there too. But that idea of a child as an idol, again, who are you honoring more, God or the child? Yeah. All right. So again, when Jesus tells us to hate our family, what does it sound like he's telling us to do at first glance, and what is he really saying?
He's saying to hate our family.
Hate, yes.
Put the Lord first.
Yes. Yeah, he's saying, hate your family. It's not necessarily love them less, but love God more. And that make sure that Jesus is always first place in our lives. So, and then another thing to think about too is recognizing, we work with internationals here, and some come from cultures that aren't Christian, and some have then, even some even studying Christianity, but especially if they convert, if they become Christian, then the recognition that they're putting God above family in a way that can be really hard, and that's often honoring elders, honoring your parents is a huge cultural thing in Asian countries, and making that break can sometimes be difficult for those reasons as well. So, all right. All right, and then, again, growing up, you're probably taught to honor and respect your parents and other authorities. Again, we're not saying don't do that, but honor them less. And then also recognizing, too, that then honoring our parents is something that we will often fail to do, and that sometimes then there can be unresolved feelings of guilt for that, how we acted as kids, how we act as parents, and that sometimes then, especially once we hit that point where we can't make reconciliation because of death, then trusting in God's forgiveness, even in those challenging situations too. All right. Yeah. So again, while we may think Jesus is telling us to love our family less, he's actually telling us to love God more. And we'll stop there. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll next week we'll keep going on this series. But then again, in 2 weeks, when President Turner's here, he'll do some spiel on what's going on in district and synod and stuff. Yes.
At the end of the chapters, is there like questions?
Yeah, and some of these discussion questions come from the
website and order myself a book. Would anyone else like me to order a book while I'm doing that? If you like your own book.
There's the name of the book.
Jesus Said What?
Jesus Said What?
Yeah, it's on. You can get it on CPH. You can get it on Amazon, depending on how you prefer to read things.
So, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just get myself one.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.